The latter's hands quivered as he took a hold of the long, thick delicacy before him. He strained to keep control over himself. He was still in public after all. He felt the heft of the phallic meal as his eyes scanned over its every nook and cranny. He bit his lip with excitement, a trickle of sauce cascading from the side of the perfect sub in his grasp and dripping onto the paper on the table below. He had never been so turned on in all his existence. If feeling this way over a sandwich was wrong, he certainly didn't want to be right. The purifier took a furtive glance around the dining room of the Jimmy John's. Elson were quietly eating their lunches and talking among each other, only taking quick, curious looks at the tall man at the table in the corner. The latter looked down between his legs, his growing arousal now quite obvious and noticeable. He shifted in his seat, then closed his eyes and pressed the sandwich to his lips, the kiss of its tasty content sweeter than that of any woman or man. He shivered with lust. He could have orgasmed from the first bite alone. The way all the perfect ingredients of the perfect, prefect sandwich meshed together, it was like the most erotica flavorful dances were taking place on his taste buds. He was unable to contain a grunt of ecstasy, a sound that caught more than a few of the restaurant patrons' attentions. He felt a saucy piece of lettuce fall onto his lap, leaving an oily stain on his white and rather tinted uniform pants. So filthy, he thought to himself. The next bites were amazing as the last. The batter's hips rutted subtly against the air, the stiff erection in his pants begging for his touch. Panting, he ate the last morsel of the sandwich in his grip. He glanced at the table. He still had another half a sub to go. Guided only by the arousal pumping through his veins, his hand, though slick and greasy with dressing, reached down to retrieve the lost lettuce on his crotch. He groaned, realizing he had instead groped at his needy bulge. The white fabric smeared with sauce as he rubbed on himself feverishly. He was so turned on, his brain was blurry from it. He didn't care anymore about keeping his social graces. He had to get off. He had to show his Jimmy John's sandwich the love and respect it deserved. His fingers were slippery, but he managed to unbutton and unzip his pants. He yanked them down, his manhood springing forth and standing tall. He eyed the lone, innocent half-sandwich on the table, drooling. Without an ounce of shame or embarrassment, the latter took a hold of the thrown, moist sandwich. It looked so beautiful while held tight in his hands, almost virginal. But he knew better than to let looks deceive him. Under the surface, it was a devilish, lustful temptress of meat, cheese, and veggies. It was, dare he say, impure. He grinned wildly. For this kind of purification, he'd be using a very different bat. With a hard, wet slam and an explosion of egg, he rammed his cock into the sub. The condiments in the sandwich were perfect for his indecent act, making it lubricated enough to slide in and out as quickly as his muscles could manage. He didn't even try to hold back his passionate moans. He knew his mind wasn't exaggerating when he realized that this sandwich was actually giving him more sexual satisfaction than any person ever had. Elson stared in horror and fascination as the tall man slumped in his seat and set his cleated feet on the table, balls deep in his lunch. To call his crescendo of ecstasy an orgasm made it seem so casual. No, this was no simple orgasm. It was an explosion of all the pent-up feelings inside of him, feelings for a perfect, if not naughty sandwich. Moaning loudly, with passion and thrusting hard and deep, his contained lust was suddenly unleashed in hot, white gushes. He pumped the sub, clasped tightly around his pulsing organ in perfect time with each spurt of spunk. Finally, with a heavy, contented sigh, the batter was spent. Satisfied, he let the sandwich go, now no more than a hollow, jizz-filled shell of bread. The contents of the sub were all over him, staining his uniform so badly, he was sure the splotches would never come out. The dining room was silent, all eyes locked on the man who had been fucking a sandwich for the past few minutes. Once his legs could support him again, the purifier stood and pulled his pants back up, ringing the floor with slices of deli meat. He promptly left as quickly as he could.